WIFTBPM.
We all remember our life before COVID-19. The parades, the lakefront barbecues, taste of Chicago, the happy hours, and most importantly, loving those unforgettable moments with our friends and families. Getting Chicago vaccinated is what will make the activities we miss safe for everyone. So let's get back to it, Chicago. Let's come together to end this pandemic. Find your vaccine at chi.gov/COVIDvax.
And for Black People Media Network, 21 Souls and Soul Foundation presents the official Naperville Soul Fest downtown Naperville, Saturday, June 5th at Neighbor Settlement, 523 Southwest Street, downtown Naperville. Starting R&B diva Kiki Wyatt, gospel Grammy winner Leandria Johnson, and many more. Downtown Naperville, Saturday, June 5th at Neighbor Settlement, 523 Southwest Street, Naperville, Illinois. Get tickets on eventbrite.com. Sponsored by What's In for Black People Media Network, 21 Souls and Soul Foundation.
Broken screen? Crash system? Are you in need of spyware or virus removal from your computer? Well, contact RPC Computer Repair in South Shore and let us help you with all your computer repair services and print needs. Need office or print production services, copies, scans, fax, or even notary service? Then stop by and support RPC Computer Repair and Print Shop located 1741 East 71st Street in the 71st Street corridor, newly revitalized South Shore areas, and let RPC be your one-stop shop, where we believe RPC is your PC. RPC Computer Repair is also a UPS access point where you can drop off and pick up your important packages. So let RPC be of service to you. Call RPC Computer Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. at 773-966-4457. That's 773-966-4457. Visit RPC at rpccomputeringinc.com for more information.
Saturday, June 19th.
That's why we
21. Grab the family and join the Woodlawn for the second annual Juneteenth block party. Join the Woodlawn team for a day of vendors, activities, DJs, live music and broadcasts, rooftop experiences, and much more. Vendor space is still available. For tickets and more information, please visit www.thewoodlawn1200.com. That's www.thewoodlawn1200.com. We do this for the culture.
Stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to.
You're listening to I Said What I Said with Toussaint Werner and Herb Howard.
What are y'all takes on blended families?
Meaning white people? Or what? No, she mean like you got kids, this person got kids, y'all get together and bring the whole family together. I don't know. I have zero experience with it. I imagine it could be challenging. Especially I think the older the children are, I think the more challenging it could be. I think if it's little children or something, you can kind of explain it to them and they may like grow up together and kind of in that same space where this is mom, this is dad type thing. But if you talk about older kids where they literally have a mom or dad, another person like that has been in their lives, when they're older and you're like, oh no, this is your stepbrother, stepsister. Like, nah, we like 17. Like, I'll bone her.
And if this family don't work, you can just give me to the game anyway. It ain't gonna matter. No woman will ever be important. I'm not being an ass. I'm serious. In my mind, the value of that kind of a commitment is family. I got that already. So now we just chilling. So you ain't gonna really know my children.
What's up, good people? You're listening to I Said What I Said with Toussaint Werner and Herb Howard live on What's In It for the Black People Media, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
WIIFTBP Media's just for you and me. WIIFTBP Media's just for you and me.
shine wherever we go. We shine wherever we go. We shine wherever we go. Shine wherever we shine wherever we go. We shine wherever we go. We shine wherever we shine wherever we go. Fuck what the cop said. I'm living a legacy. So even when I die, I am not dead. Nigga, I am not dead. fuck with me.
I didn't have no idea that we was on air. Welcome to Friday edition of I Said What I Said, broadcasting live from the What's in It for the Black People studios on this beautiful Friday. It is hot as hell outside. And I don't have Herb's full introduction, but he said something about the community and how we do it collectively. And, if you got some input, say something about it. But I'm not going to do all that. So, because I don't know all that.
You did really good.
Yeah, I do my best, you know what I mean? But, today is Relationship Friday, so we always have our second co-pilot, but today is our only co-pilot because Herb Howard, my player partner, had other things to do. Even before I introduce you, well, everybody knows Jules anyway. Everybody say hello to our beautiful co-host, Juliet Scott. Jules, what's up?
Not a thing. I'm happy to be here as usual. My week still wouldn't be the same without you.
Look at that. Look at God. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. So let me tell you about today, because today was a piece of shit. Already, right? Yesterday was beautiful, but today's some ass, right? So Wednesday we were in here, and Herb told me, like, I ain't gonna be here Friday, so we should cancel the show. And I was like, no, we ain't. You gonna be here Friday.
I heard that.
Because I had booked a good guest, right? And I was like, no, we need to be here. You know what I mean? And he stood strong with his guns, like, no, I'm doing some other shit. And I was like, no, that's not really how we gonna do this. You gonna do what we gotta do. And anyway, so I was like, all right, but I figured out I'd do it myself. Now, honestly, I have no idea how nothing in here works, right? I don't know how to push a button. You know what I mean? I come here, I sit in the co-pilot chair, and I just talk shit. That's what I do best, right? So
now I get to choose.
That's right. So Herb navigates everything. He pushes all the buttons, does all the intros, he's the point guard, right? Pass me the ball, I'm going to score, right? So now I'm in the point guard seat, and I don't like the point guard seat. Now, that's crazy because in real life, I like playing the point guard. But in here, I don't want to do that at all. But either way, this morning, Herb hits me and says, first I hear Herb and say, hey, man, who we going to get in here to produce? Because if I got to push the buttons, it's a wrap.
There'll be no button pushing today.
I ain't going to be no button pushing. You know what I mean? So he's like, man, I'm going to reach out to DJ. So salute to DJ because DJ is in the building looking out. One time for DJ. And I was like, all right, bet we'll make it happen. He was like, man, you want Jules to come? I was like, yeah, of course. I had no intention of Jules not being here. I need some support.
I'm your support. I got you.
So then 5 minutes later, he hit me back and says, Jules got an exam. She probably not going to make it. I was like, look here, man, that's not what I want to hear, right? So, and you know how guests are, right? You never know if they're going to show up until they show up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm steadily hitting the big guest. He's steadily not hitting me back. And I'm saying, sounds like some more bullshit. It just keeps getting better, right? So obviously it was some bullshit. So he's not here. Respect, love. I ain't even gonna say your name. It's my real friend, but he's a big guest. So now I'm like, wait a minute, man. The guest ain't showing. Jules ain't showing. We should just cancel this shit. Because I can't talk for 2 hours specifically about no damn relationship shit. I could care less. It doesn't matter to me that much.
It does. It fits with a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You told me. It fits with a bigger picture.
It fits with the bigger picture, sure. But me talking to myself or a screen, I can't do that. Yes. Right? You got to have a real skill set to do that. To sit and have a monologue of sorts for 2 hours is like, man, get your ass out of here. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Different level of narcissism?
Kind of, sort of. Like, yeah, what the fuck? I'm talking to a TV screen. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So it was all bad, man. And then last minute, he said, Jules, come. I said, man, that's fucking dope. And DJ here too. DJ, you got a mic back there?
Oh, yeah. How y'all doing today?
Absolutely, my brother. So DJ always has interesting commentary. So this is going to be a fun conversation. And we got good brother, Mark Wayne McDonald on his way up here.
Yes.
So we can scavenge a hunt and make some things happen in the spur of the moment around here, man. Even when the fake big guests don't show up. So today should be a good day.
Yeah, everything's in alignment. Everything shows up the way it's supposed to for a reason. And so some stuff is going to come out of it that's going to be super dope.
That's look at Jules. See? Making sugar out of shit. Go ahead, girl. You know what I mean?
Isn't that something we know how to do? I prefer $1 out of 15 cents.
However you call it. It's just
shit too, I guess.
It's part of the black diaspora. I'm looking at the TV and I'm seeing all these comments, but I'm looking at my computer and I don't see nobody talking to nobody. I don't understand how this is happening. But maybe it's me. Maybe it's the feed I'm on.
Which one you in?
I'm on all of them. I'm on the What's in It for the Black People feed. I'm on the
I said what I said feed, and I'm on the YouTube feed.
Yeah, they definitely into what's in it for the black people.
I can't figure it out. I don't know why I'm not seeing the comments, but it is what it is. So Howard Trout says he's here, and that's all that matters. Support the brother Howard Trout. I see him on the TV, so you ain't got to do nothing about it. We all good. But on this here today, Relationship Friday, we're gonna start with something easy. Easy? Well, two things easy. Two topics. Like I'm in a lot of these sports groups, right? And we in the NBA playoffs, right? And James Harden, you know who James Harden is, Jules?
Yes, I'm with you.
Go ahead, Jules. So James Harden plays for the Brooklyn Nets. Used to play for OKC, also played for Houston. Like outside of basketball, he's notorious for being with the popular ladies, i.e. Instagram, i.e. the Kardashians, i.e. whoever's in the media right now. James Harden has found his way to, be around that somehow, be around that conversation somehow. Interesting. So in one of these sports groups I was in, there's a meme that said he paid this singer chick named Sweetie, I think it is. I think she's the one that the young boy was messing with from.
No, that's Quavo. They just broke up.
Okay, Quavo. What's the name of that group he's in?
The Migos.
The Migos, right. I'm old as shit, so I don't
I'm right
knowing.
with you. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
educate me
in
in this process.
But anyway, it's rumored that James Harden cash apped her $100,000 to go on a date.
Okay.
And there was a conversation in the sports group, like, is that cool? You know what I mean?
Him, I don't know about cool, but it worked for him.
No, he didn't get the date.
Oh.
Apparently, she still said no. She kept the cash app. But she still said no. But it brought me to this idea. Like, I remember a few years back, Lil Wayne had a rap verse, and I just recognized it changing in the culture.
Okay.
And the rap verse says, and this become part of the black lexicon at this point, and it says, it's not tricking if you got it. Right?
Okay.
Now, in my day, it was tricking even if you had it. You know what I mean? It was still tricking, right? Now, I make this argument all the time about how transactional we are.
Yes, you do.
Right? But again, just how the culture shifts. In my day, the average man in your peer group or even the elder dude would be like, nah, that ain't how that move, family. Not to say, now if this is your lady and you got a real solidified commitment or something, nobody's saying, hey, treat her like less than a woman or treat her less than important.
Of course.
But some random woman in the street, you don't approach her with capital first. That was never like the modicum of how you were supposed to move.
And I've heard men talk about leading with your wallet and how jacked up that can lead you further down the road. If that's your whole start is leading with your wallet, you in trouble. Like that's the expectation moving forward. And you get what you pay for, in not just a real sense, but also a proverbial sense. Mm-hmm. And it's setting up for the transaction type. I give and I expect to get. And that goes to, are we dealing with the concept or actual person?
So to the point that you get what you pay for. What is that woman?
Liberated. So I know
she's liberated? Is she liberated, Jules?
If that's how she chooses to function, I say
how Jules your bullshit. DJ, what is that woman?
Hey, what my show called on Wednesday. You feel me? Hey, I mean? She, like I said, I'm buying her, so you know what it is. If I buy her, that's how I feel. And like in my generation, that's how it is. Like I was with some girls and I had this conversation too. And then a girl, her response was, how do I know if he like me if my Cash App don't ding? I swear to God, I swear to you. And it was, but that's how it is. And that's why when a dude go out on a date, and now I done spent all this money on you, it's transactional. You feel me? At the end of the night, just like R. Kelly said, don't you say no tonight. It's, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, that's what it is. So now we've liking each other off what we can do for each other nowadays.
That's so interesting. I just had a brother tell me just less than an hour ago that women are accepted and appreciated for who they are, men for what they can do. And so it sounds like from what both you guys are saying, it's all about what you can do. Can you provide money? Can you make my Cash App ring? So.
How do I know if he likes me if my Cash App don't ring?
I promise you.
We fucked up. We messed up. We sick. But I asked this about the James Harden, right? Because last night, Megan Thee Stallion dropped a record called Thought Shit, right? And it's already like trending topic on Twitter. Obviously shooting to the #1 song in whatever, however they quantify that now, YouTube, whatever streaming services already. And I watched it this morning because I knew it was going to be some bullshit. Now, I was like, this is going to be a topic of conversation, right? Well, at least bullshit for me. I mean, I say bullshit because perspective is important, and whatever perspective you come from, you might appreciate that shit. You know what I mean? So I started with James Harden. Now we're going to double down with Megan Thee Stallion's
her song.
Video, her song, that shit, right? Now, this is why the Megan Thee Stallion shit is really, really important to me. So, what happened with the Megan Thee Stallion song, how I even knew this was a thing, right? Because I follow this sister on Instagram, and I saved the picture because I don't be knowing nobody's names and handles and all that type of stuff. But she's a professor. She's like relevant, like Harvard professor, Yale professor, some black sister too. And she's heavy in the feminist conversation, and she brings a lot of topics that meet the mainstream, right? Okay. And just in this moment, I can't even figure out how to get to my pictures on my iPhone. I really feel ancient. This is some real bullshit.
But even so, just the fact that we're talking about Megan Thee Stallion, that reach is just so broad that it's going to be something that impacts anyway, whether or not the professor was talking about it or not.
True, but the professor talking about it makes it relevant to me and how she talks about it, because essentially she's in a very different space than you would assume the average Megan Thee Stallion fan to be in, right? So a lot of times we write certain stuff off as this caliber of person, and we are not these caliber of people. And when I said that shit, DJ was in the room. He's like, what's a thought? He didn't realize it was a song, and he was like, that word originated out west. There's a stereotype attached to just being out west.
Cicero Madison, baby.
Right. So the sister's name, who's the professor, she's called Professor Crunk on Instagram, but that's not her real name.
Got it.
But she's very, very relevant. She's on CNN. She's on all the news stations. She's out here. She's talking. She's reputable in a lot of spaces. Okay. Right. And she wrote. So first of all, Megan charts. Megan is now the #1 trending topic on Twitter in the U.S.
Like Tinder.
In the U.S. following the release of Thot Shit, right? And then Professor Crunks writes, I fucks with the Stallion so hard for Thot Shit. This is a fucking Harvard professor writing this, right? Yeah. And she's been notable for a lot of the topics she's written about black men and how we ain't shit too, right? So she says, this is what black feminist critique plus hip-hop feminism looks like. She gives the state plus white patriarchy her whole ass to kiss, calls them out for relying on black women while legislating against black women, refuses black women's respectability as the solution, represents for essential workers. Because she's calling hoes essential workers. Let's be clear here. I don't want us to be confused about nothing.
Age-old profession.
Right? And I ain't mad at it, but essential worker, okay. I just want to be clear in my conversation here. And then she says, fucks with the phallic in favor of pussy power.
Oh.
This is brilliant goddamn work. And it's still a bop, which means we can get our joy on, our twerk on in the midst of critique. Job very well done, sis. Now, I go double down, check out the video, right? It's some Megan Thee Stallion shit. I ain't have too many expectations, right? But there's not a scene in the video where her ass ain't out. That's one, right? And I'm not critiquing, I'm just saying what it is. It's not one scene where her face is in that scene that her ass ain't featured with her face. You know what I mean? It's like she's rapping with her back to the camera every time. Right, so I see it. I peep it. Okay, it is what it is, Megan Thee Stallion. But then there's a line in. Was fun. What's that? Look at DJ there. He tried to find the video. But there's the line at the end of the song where she was like, basically what DJ just said with the young sister. If you ain't spinning, we can't even communicate.
We can go beyond that. Listen to what's Cardi B song up? Broke boy don't deserve no. I know that's right. Like
broke boys don't deserve no pussy.
I know that's how we are living in a generation. And when you ask millennials, they feel the same way. Like when you come to me, have your stuff together. Like they not looking to build. Like you can build at this age. I speak to a lot of women, and I just try to be like, dang, like I could be, you know what I'm saying, broke today but a millionaire tomorrow, but we can work together and build something. She said, nah, man, I don't have time to be struggle. My parents struggle and got nowhere. So I need you to already have your establishment, especially if I'm already trying to be established. Then I don't need, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's come together when we both good.
So James Harden, one end of the spectrum, superstar celebrity athlete. Megan Thee Stallion, superstar celebrity rapper slash thot shit representative. I don't know what you would call it, right? Whatever, right? But those are like extremes.
Yes.
Right? Those are extremes in any capacity. Those are not the normal nothing in our community. Both multimillionaires, both very visible. You know, you can't get away from either of them, right? But there's a mindset that we don't recognize as an extreme that's fairly normalized with the, you know, the young girl on 63rd Street or the young girl on Pulaski and Madison.
I don't know that we don't recognize it as an extreme. We don't recognize it as a problem.
That's a good way to look at it. I could agree with that.
And
but
so one of the things that is showing up for me in this conversation, I'm a different generation of person in relation to the music scene. So the last big name that I was tied into was, in essence, Beyonce, when she was really putting out a lot of music. Not that she's not now, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about Girls Run the World. So that's pushing that woman power thing. But at the end of the video, you see her salute the man. And so that's not present at all. There is no recognition and no acknowledgement in this current theme of us balancing and recognizing one another.
I can see that. But look, I could rock with the theme of Girls Run the World, right? Flat out, pussy's powerful, right? It gives life, right? You are God, period. Hands down, I'm not confused about it at all, right?
I am.
I'm not confused about it.
Ain't nothing better than pussy but new pussy. So it just like it's a.
But even
So
still, it
though.
still makes pussy the most powerful thing on this planet.
I gotta go with money, but okay.
No,
because that can make the money move too.
Even the money is about getting to the pussy. It is.
He nodded like, yeah. Let me.
It gives life, fam. There's nothing above it. There's nothing above it, right?
Zero, no higher.
So I'm not minimizing it, but I think women are minimizing it. Because if you're willing to trade it for some fucking money, and money's not as powerful as the pussy, then you're minimizing it.
And so a part of the conversation for me, though, is we can't make it through this life without one another. Like there has to be balance. And so if I'm the dominant character and you have no value in my world, then where does that leave us? If I am minimizing you to only be able to produce and not recognizing your spiritual and your value being able to contribute to me beyond material things, where is that going to leave us as it relates to building and saving our nation?
Oh, it doesn't equate to nothing. It just builds and saves myself, right? And that's kind of where we are. America breeds this kind of rugged individualism kind of philosophy. And what women have tapped into is that, hey, I'm sitting on this pussy. And this is a gold mine, right? It's a gold mine. So if I'm sitting on this gold mine, I can secure myself, if not nothing else. But it's a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Right? Because the money itself isn't a real sense of security. And it's never going to lead to happiness. So what you end up doing is being a depressed motherfucker with a dried out pussy because your mindset ain't attached to your pussy no more. Because your pussy's just for sale.
So one of the big challenges for me that's present is, and that's the interesting thing. The last time I was here, we were having a conversation with how the sisters are dressed and the advertising. And so I got to shop for a man with my body. Like, when did my mind leave the
Every
conversation?
scene has her ass out.
So
He's watching it right now. DJ can't stop smiling. It's not a scene in the video. Well, I say that.
Smile on his face, so that's good. And so, in one part of the conversation, there is the issue that I think is the pushback from women being hidden and pushed in the background. So I think a lot of that comes from a very hurt space, and so I think that on both sides, men have to take accountability for where we are right now, because in essence, hey, you guys kind of left us out there, and this is what I know I can work with, and this is how I can make you pay. So
Ready Rock says men ruin relationships over pussy every day. It's worth something. I'm not never saying pussy ain't worth nothing.
No, you just said
right?
It's worth everything.
It's worth everything. It's gold. He's not thinking about ruining a relationship. He just trying to get more gold.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I read. I mean, I talked about the James Harden situation. Then I talked about the Megan Thee Stallion situation because they're the same energy.
Underneath this, all
right?
about.
It's the same energy, right? And from the man's standpoint, other dudes is looking at the brother like, you fucking goofy, right? But then women are raving a flag up. No, this is the standard.
That's how it's supposed to go.
Right? And these, again, like I said, they're extremes, right? Look at DJ having a hot flash. But then there's another Twitter meme that was getting a lot of attention in this other conversation. And it says, if I ever get married, I don't think I want to live together. Like, let's spend 3 or 4 nights together. But I'm fully in support of separate housing and one marital house. I need space and quiet at least 3 times a week. And this is why
that sounds like that porn star.
Both of these conversations are so interesting to me. The two spectrums of the James Harden and the Megan Thee Stallion, and then this regular, 63rd Street girl. And I'm just using that because I don't know where this person is from. But we're living in this fantastical idea of what our reality is. I don't want to get married because I need space, right? And I'm not saying marriage should be the goal, not at all. We should have separate housing and a marital house. Motherfucker, the median net income for black people is 60 grand, and that's dual income earning households. That's 230s. You can't get 2 apartments with that shit.
That's true.
But our mindset is so focused on this material construct, and we don't even acknowledge the reality of our positioning, i.e. going back to the sale of pussy. You selling that pussy because you poor, and you overvalue capital instead of real, tangible relationships with other human beings. So even if you stabilize your life with that pussy, and we see it every day, Instagram is full of women who've stabilized their life with pussy. Right? And I'm not an expert. And I'm not an expert. Right? I'm not an expert. But when I look at them, those specific women, and I'm not, I don't even want to say those specific. There are certain women who publicly promote the idea that, hey, I'm stabilizing my life with this pussy. So it's like you don't have to research. It's like it's not hidden at all, right? But in the energies and the eyes and the lifestyles of those women, because their whole lives become public, at least these specific women, I don't see happiness in none of them.
So to some degree, and just a reminder, I just shared. I almost forgot to share. So don't forget to share and let people know. Share it on your personal page and your other page.
Share.
Because
and I'm going to stop saying pussy because we can't share it like that.
I heard you when the baby was in the studio. I was like, I meant to say box. I'm so sorry.
And we got a warning sign on there that I might have to put you on there. I might have to put the warning sign on for you.
Hey, man, we got to stop being scared to use this language that everybody uses, though. You know what I mean?
And
the whole concept of I said what I said is we want to be relatable to the average person. Intellectual conversations with backyard words.
But either way, the average person, I think, can relate.
Yeah.
But the point I was coming to was around the idea. I think so in one space, I think it's a power conversation, but it's also a hurt conversation. So in one point, women are identifying with being able to step in and create, but it's a pseudo, in my opinion, it's like a pseudo creation around this soul aspect of my being. And that's not necessarily, I mean, I get why there's such a pushback and such a promotion of this piece of me, because this is what you all respond to best. And this is always where I get what I want consistently. But the other side of that is there's a way to recognize there's more to it and then reshape it differently, as opposed to making it so, as you say, transactional.
Let me ask DJ. DJ, is that what we respond to best? Box?
Probably so. Close to either that or drugs and money. It all depends on how you.
In relation to the woman.
Oh, well, then it's really just.
You ever been in love, DJ?
For sure.
Like for real?
Like for real.
You think that box was more important than that woman? Like,
what were you after though?
Initially? Well, you know what? If you put it like that, then you know what, you're right. Then yeah, but or maybe I was
do you another one. The motherfucker you was in love with. I know this is gonna be hard to answer on live, right? The person you was in love with, was that the best box you ever had?
know what? I'm gonna say yes.
You gonna say yes?
But wait, here's the question though. But before you ever got to that love part, you were trying to get to the aspect of her that makes her a woman. Yes or no? Did you see her? Because men are visual creatures. You were drawn to her sexually, yes? You had an interest in being close to this woman.
Yeah, her booty called me.
I don't negate that at all.
But
But we chase all of that. Dogs chase cars all day long.
But it's still about her sexuality. You wasn't like, damn, she got a fine ass mind.
So I'm gonna tell you this though, and this fucked me up, right? As I matured,
Yes.
right? As you mature, it changes. Like
But you're still checking for the form. I don't care.
you never stop, right? But my point is like, and I recognize this in myself in my mid-20s, right? But like, I don't know, from the beginning, from whatever the first time I got some box,
it definitely changed.
to mid-20s, I was like, God damn, she thick as that, that kind of energy, right? But then at a certain age, and you've been accustomed, and I don't want to say accustomed, if you're a certain kind of cat, and you've had your run, let's say that.
Get boring.
Right? You've had your run, you find interest in other things, right? And you realize that just moving how you was moving leads to a lot of erratic, crazy behavior around you, and you just don't want to deal with that shit.
Facts.
It's not valuable enough to deal with the crazy, erratic behavior that comes behind it. So now you start to look for other behavior traits, other attitude types.
Other as opposed to first, though. So it's always about her sexuality that draws you in. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's the energy that you're trying to connect with first.
I'm not negating the power of sexuality. It's powerful, right? I think it guides your decision making. I do.
And that's why I say that's how we get you all to move. And so that's why.
But only in the short come.
Okay, and that's fine, but that's the start of it. And that's where we generally, I think, find most success as it relates to. It's interesting how men navigate space when they are tied to a woman physically versus not.
But boxes are like cars. I know this sounds horrible, right? They're like cars, right? The minute we touch it, it depreciates, right? Now, if we like the woman, the minute we touch it, it appreciates. There's a difference.
Got it.
If it's just about the box, the moment we touch it, it's just like a car when you drive off the lot and that shit loses $3,000. That's box.
Yeah. After you grow up, it get like boring after a while. Like in the mind, like after you have, like you said, after you have so much, right after you know what I'm saying, ejaculate or whatever, like your mindset immediately like, damn, like why did I even do that shit? Like to be honest, like, and I'm sure too, like maybe like most dudes that actually, like on a regular, you be like, yeah, that's cool. Or like sometimes like as I got older, I don't look for that no more. You feel me? Like I look to see if your ass not crazy. That's all I want to know. Are you not gonna cut me or something? You know what I'm saying? But with that box, I'm cool, man.
Or how do you benefit my life?
Right, exactly. So like it's a difference. Like like I'm trying to do other things now.
But I'm just explaining to you from my point of view where I think that power play comes from and why it comes into being. So if most of my interaction, what did you guys say a couple of Fridays ago? From the moment we 13, I get the door for you. How about some dick? So
kind of like that.
And so if that's the case, and that's where I find most of my successes with you, and by and large, you all don't stay around very long, then I need to cash. If that's what I think it is, like if I'm from that much of a hurt space, if that's what I think it is, then I need to cash out as early as possible.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper though, right? As men, we start to recognize, I would assume most of us start to recognize this too, as we mature. There's some guys who never get out of that mindset, right? Let me get the door for you. I'm going to give you some dick, right? In most instances, those guys...
And I've heard conversation about that being spiritual, but we can come back to that.
Well, hit me to that conversation. But in my perspective, in most instances, those guys... What's a good word for this? Those guys, they're not like the prototype, proper polarized male, in my opinion.
Got it.
Right? That should not be your guidepost at certain levels, in my opinion.
Right.
You
but
know
it
what I
does
mean?
exist, like you just said.
Absolutely. It's the guide for a lot of people. You know what I mean? And I tend to look at that shit as insanity. Now, when you 13 to whatever the free willing energy, that youthful energy, you can move like that. You don't have any responsibilities. You're not accountable for nothing. I don't care.
Right.
Right? Do your thing. Right? I tell all young boys that I know, 0 to 25, you're going to be chasing box. 25 on, box going to chase you. Make the right decisions.
Interesting.
That's how it works. That's the game. The game changes, right? And most, I ain't going to say most, but a lot of women don't adapt to the change. So even when you come out on the Megan Thee Stallion and say, hey, you can't talk to me unless you got some money. All I got to do is be over 25 and I win the game. That's it. Specifically from our positioning, right? When you add on homosexuality, when you add on incarceration, when you add on just nothingness or giving into the system, if I make it over 25 and I'm sane, I win.
And so, tell me what your win looks like. So how do
I
you
can have whatever I want.
And you function like that, and that's the point. And that's why the sisters are showing up the way that they're showing up now. It's coming from a hurt space. You're not going to be here anyway, so let me get what I need to. And so that's where that whole, I think, feminist conversation, which I think is kind of, in my opinion, kind of dangerous, as opposed to us just identifying where the hurt spaces are, fix it, and moving forward together, versus me being on the other end. So I think part of that feminist conversation comes from men always being out front, not acknowledging the women. So now the women say, no, I'm going to be out front. I'm not going to acknowledge you. Well, it didn't work when the men were ahead. So let's figure out a way to just move together and acknowledge the hurt and fix it moving forward. But either way, it's coming from a hurt space, and that's why that shows up. Now, how does it get corrected? At what point, since the men are going to function like that, especially up in 25, and you have this mindset that I'm winning after 25 anyway, because I breathe and I got this particular genital attached to my body.
It's real though.
Hey, I was trying to understand that too. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, after 25, like shit, I'm 33. Like, what am I missing? Did I leave something?
You think the energy of how women dealt with, I'm saying 25, maybe it's just me, I'm being aggressive. Maybe it's 30. I don't know. Right? But I think the energy shifts. The energy shifts because what a woman desires is different.
For sure.
Right? So cute don't mean shit at 30. How stable are you?
Cute
what kind of peace can you bring to my life?
The guy or the gal. Cute doesn't mean anything.
To the girl, right? So I don't want to say this out loud. So I was born in the 80s and I was light skinned and I'm handsome. So shit happens. You know what I mean? It is. But I got partners who wasn't light skinned and handsome. And I'm not knocking, I'm not saying that's the standard. I'm just saying, social shit affects how people respond to you. It is what it is, and I take advantage of it. It is what it is. I got partners who didn't have those qualities, right? And wasn't getting the access that I was getting. Later on in life, they start wearing suits and shit. Life changed, right?
Got the bag a little bit, and women look at that.
Life's changed, right? Life's changed. But I'm also say this though too, because I'm not putting one group or one gender above the other. I think both of them are operating in a level of insanity.
Yes.
Right? So the guy who was deprived of that early box experience and is now getting it in his second wave of life is kind of living a second childhood. Right? So his whole driving point is new box. And you in your 40s. Right? So when I say you get over 25 and you won, now there's guys out there that take advantage of it like that. I'm 40 and I'm moving how I want to move, right? Taking fully a total advantage of whatever I want, right? But there's another phase of life too. So after your 40s and you reach your 50s and your body starts breaking down, what have you built? Where have you built a solidified relationship with anyone? Because that's what's going to become valuable.
And so I've heard men say that men don't like to die alone. So
oh shit, I've seen it. It's sad.
And so then anchoring yourself or having roots someplace,
family is everything,
to have a different value. But up until that time, there are women that are existing while you all are going through this phase of, I don't really want to put my roots anywhere. And so then you get a Megan Thee Stallion and you get a professor saying, yes, this is what it is, and this is how you run the world from this perspective.
I tend to think, right, so that professor, this is going to sound so ignorant. So even with all of the intellect, and I don't negate her intellect at all. You can tell how the way she communicates, she's very bright. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of her ideas, but she's very bright. But in the realm of attractiveness, she doesn't qualify, right?
She doesn't meet your eyes quite the same.
I don't think she meets anyone's eyes that way. But
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But
nobody's beholding that. But anyway, my point in saying that is that I think oftentimes we approach these kind of social, political ideas from a very interpersonal perspective.
Okay.
Right? So I came up in a situation where I wasn't valued in this realm. I came up in a situation where men didn't look at me like this. So now this disdain that I've had since I was 8 comes out in how I communicate around my studies, how I communicate around these topics, how I communicate around these ideas, right? And even personally, I try to approach most things from a very worldview perspective, right? I talk about the median net worth of black families. I'm not in that quadrant, right? But I know that that's the vast majority of our experiences. And even though I'm not in that quadrant, that's the vast majority of our experiences.
Right.
And I'm for the people and about the people. So what I'm dealing with is kind of irrelevant to me. This is where we are. I count myself in the we instead of the me, right? But when I communicate or listen to people, oftentimes when I dig a little bit beyond the surface, I think most times they're trying to explain the me while representing for the we.
Okay.
Right? And I think that skews the understanding oftentimes.
Without even admitting that that's coming from a me space.
Yeah.
And without the other person that's hearing even being able to recognize that's your me space. That doesn't have to be what is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think it's possible that that's very true for the professor, like being able to identify with a different, and it goes back to that power space and that hurt space, because if my experience that nobody really responded to me like that as I was coming up, and now I hear this young lady promoting being able to move and function like this, I can banter, I can wave a flag for that, I can stand behind her on that. Comes from not only necessarily not having those experiences, not being celebrated like that, as well as looking for a way to empower oneself. It comes back to the power conversation. It comes back to, in essence, for me, even the freedom conversation. How have I been able to exist? Have I been able to enjoy life in a free space and show up a certain way and get people to respond? And if I haven't had that freedom, then I'm going to function a certain way to manipulate what I want to show up in my world moving forward.
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the argument of white privilege.
Okay.
Right? And I hate that concept. Right? I do. I personally hate it.
Okay.
Right? I hate that we align ourselves with the idea that it's a real thing.
Okay.
Right? But it is a real thing because you benefit from it. You know what I mean? It's almost like the dark skin, light skin conversation in our community because you benefit from it. And again, maybe it's my jadedness because I've benefited from those things. You know what I mean? So my perspective is wielded and built around, I guess, benefiting from them things and having the ability to avoid the benefit, right? Having the ability to say, no, I don't want to reap the reward of this.
Mm-hmm. But you had a choice.
I had the choice.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe when I had
even after you did it, though, it's never, you didn't say, I don't want to benefit from this now. You tried it first.
Yeah.
Because you had that option.
Yeah, you have having the option is a benefit, is a privilege, right? So even when I get to a space and place and say, that's some bullshit, that's some sucker shit, right? But I have the option. So somebody without the option might not never come from that perspective, and I gotta respect that,
right?
Right. But I think when that comes into if you never have the option, your perspective has to be jaded. Because you don't consider the possibility, right?
It definitely changes how you're able to view things. Especially, we had the conversation before about being able to look outside. Like if you don't know that you're in something, the fish is in the water. I'm in water. So you don't know that there are other ways to look and to function because you're coming from your space and staying tied to your space. And that's the whole thing about having biases. Who said what now?
I'm laughing at She-Raw on YouTube when you said men don't like to die alone. She said, yeah, they be ready to settle down when they need a hip or a knee replacement.
It's funny because it's true. But that's the whole reality of it, though. But But again, in the meantime, there are women that are existing. Hey, let's go experience the world together, and men not showing up for that. But if I say, here's the transaction here, here's how I can win. Can you function off of this? And then you get your response. Then that's a win. So that's what you're gonna continue to work with.
Do you think that's a real thing, though?
What do you mean?
think anybody is legitimately looking to operate in the spiritual space and let's experience in the world together?
Yes.
Really?
Me? And I know I'm not the only one. So I think when those other conversations show up, it's coming from a hurt space. The conversation of, oh, I don't need anybody. The conversation of, yeah, well, maybe I'll have a partner later in life, but let's have two different houses. I think that comes from tries and failures and getting to a point where, well, shit, I just don't want to try anymore. I constructed a way in my mind to how I can make it work. So let me see if I can find this thing instead, because the first thing didn't work out. The first idea didn't work out. So let me try this other thing.
I think the idea of transactional relating isn't a new idea. Right?
Got it.
I think it's kind of the basis of the Western philosophy on male-female relationships.
Okay.
Right? I think the construct of marriage is based on that same idea of ownership. Right? I think it was birthed out of that space and place. Now, we've adapted it because we've been socialized to just adjust. We've been socialized to be Christians. We've been socialized to fall in line with these ideas of this Western world.
So marriage in the sense of being before a judge or before the preacher, but I think marriage is probably age old. Like it was a union in the beginning when the woman showed up.
I.e. per the Bible understanding. I think, and I'm no biblical scholar.
Got it.
Right? But I think the minute you have intercourse, the biblical idea is that bonding of that union of marriage.
Right.
Right? So yeah, you've married a bunch of people.
It happens.
But that's kind of my point, right? Yeah, if it's since the beginning of time. Per that understanding, yeah, we're going to bond ourselves to a bunch of motherfuckers because that's what community really is. I'm just saying.
You play too much.
I'm just saying.
But even outside of that, even before we would stand in front of the preacher and have the judge at Daily Center sign off on anything, in our homeland, there was the idea of marriage, and it wasn't about bonding with a whole bunch of different people. It was, I believe, more of a spiritual commitment and connection. So it's two things, and I don't see anything wrong with the ownership piece. Like I told you, I own my relationship with my brothers and my sisters. You are my brother, you're my sister, and with that comes a responsibility to you to show up in that space. The ownership piece is not the issue for me. I think that sometimes it's the ego issue. Like, I need to be able to claim you and be able to have a certain status because that's how I get my pat on the back of having been able to, have a husband and so forth and be able to throw that label on somebody.
Can there be levels to that construct, the ownership, though, right? And I mean, in this sense, like you said, I own my brothers and sisters, right? I own that fact that this is my sister. I own the fact that this is my brother. I own the fact that I should show up in a certain polarity for them and they should show up in a certain polarity for me. Could that be extended to the entirety of the community and in the same kind of level of comfort?
I think it's supposed to be.
I think it's supposed to be too, but it's not normalized. And if it is extended to the entirety of the community, then going back to that biblical understanding of marriage, right? I'm legitimately bonded to all y'all, and it's not just a one person thing.
Right.
And I'm not saying be a slut or none of that. I'm saying, but our connectivity is genuine.
Yes.
Right? I love you because I love you. Going even back to the brother-sister construct, right? Or the uncle or whatever.
Right.
Right? This Chicago and 2022. Everybody got a dope fiend, somebody in their family.
Right.
Right? And although they all the way fucked up and all the way embarrassing, that's mine. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's mine, and you gonna treat them a certain way. You don't want nobody else responding to them in any out of order kind of way. But then you look at somebody else's mind, dope thing, and fully disregard their ass.
And I think that in part does come from another hurt space and not necessarily being able to extend our love out as far as it should go. And one of the things that I'm noticing and being able to call out is our love for one another is very conditional. It's on the conditional that you were born into my bloodline or into my experience of being where I relate to you as mine. And if that's not the case, you are a stranger, then I don't identify with you as mine. But that's why these conversations are important, so we can throw up the reminder, no, we all belong to one another and we need to correct that. And I saw a comment, I didn't see the Oris Williams, that's said something about women don't want to die alone either, but more women do because they get caught in their careers or whatever else. And I think that is another extension of the hurt and the cop-out. I'm going to throw myself into this because this is all I have because you're not showing up.
I fully agree that men have a real responsibility that they have to show up for, right?
But where are you all having that conversation and fixing that? Because
Right.
okay.
Right. But we have it at different levels too, and fixing it may look different for us than it looks for you.
Okay.
Right.
So what?
Because I think fixing it for the vast majority of just people in this Western Hemisphere is falling in line with the white supremacist idea of life.
Okay.
I think that's what we think fixing it is. And in this conversation, and here specifically, and in conversations I have with my peers, I push a very different paradigm, right? I think fixing it is shunning all that white supremacy says is right.
Including marriage?
All the white supremacy says.
Look at that. What do you have to say about that? I saw his eyes gaze over like,
Can you say that again, please?
So Toussaint said shunning all of white supremacist views, and I said including marriage. And so, like, where are you at with that conversation?
With marriage?
The idea of marriage.
It's cool. I mean, to me, I grew up in none of my family stayed in their first marriage. Like I've been with my girl now since I was a shorty. So we've been together. Our son is 18, so we've been together like technically like 17 years or whatever. So, but all my people have got divorced. So I told her like, hey, I'm gonna marry somebody else, and like a joke, like because we all stayed with our second wife. So I said, listen, I'm gonna go marry somebody else real quick, and I'm gonna come back and marry you because that's the only. But I mean, it don't really change too much, you know. I guess you get like the little legal stuff, but I mean, I don't really see if it's an urgency to marriage.
And I think this conversation came up a little bit the last time I was here. When I was in conversation with a brother before I got here today, and I was sharing with you, Toussaint, that he and his woman have been together for 10 years, and that idea of marriage is a source of contention. So for him, he doesn't want to because it puts him at risk financially. He's worried about the courts if things don't work out and losing everything that he got.
It's a real thing.
But for her, I think, and so that's his security, but her security lies in getting married. And so if he's on this end and she's on the other end, he's happy where he's at, them not being married. She's unhappy with that. So if he's happy and she's unhappy, that means that somebody has what they want and somebody doesn't. So where do you meet in the middle?
How does it leave her unsecure?
You'd have to ask her, but I suspect that there is the idea that if you're married, and a lot of men don't, it's cheaper to keep her is the concept. So I think the idea is if we're married in a court or with a paper, you're more likely to remain. And so the security is that you will be here.
As beneficiary to whatever he leaves behind.
No, I don't mean in that context, not in the context of provision in that way.
Just in regards to like safety and protection around being in that relationship?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's some fuck shit in my opinion, Jules.
I get it, and a lot of men say that, but if that's your position and your partner's position is on the complete opposite end, then where is the middle at? And where does that leave us in the context of this larger conversation that we're having today as it relates to women saying, if this is what I prefer and I can't get this, well, I know I'm going to get that if I make you move.
But that goes directly to what I
box.
said in the interim of this conversation. Mm-hmm. I think there's an idea that fixing our responsibility in the relationship is falling in line with the American paradigm. Because that's the American paradigm, right? Okay. Fall in line with this shit because the rules state you're more secure here.
But what if it's not about the rule for me? What if just like my soul would feel better if we're anchored and bound in a very
If you were anchored
manner.
and bound spiritually, that piece of paper wouldn't mean shit.
Right. But if it does to me,
then you ain't anchored and bound spiritually.
but if it, no, the question is, if it does to me, if we're anchored and bound spiritually, then me having the paper shouldn't cause you a bunch of pushback because it's not about the paper. So the paper should be just as irrelevant to you as well.
I'm gonna say this, right? I'm married. I'm married, right? But I'm gonna tell you how I got here.
Okay.
Right? Because this was some real shit in my house.
Okay.
It's a level of contention early on, right? We had children, and I wasn't thinking about no fucking marriage, right? She was, hey now, what's going on, right? And we was going back and forth, having all kind of young conflicts, young relationship conflicts. You know, and we went and sat down with this therapist dude, and I was like, this is some bullshit. You know what I mean? And he said something, and it wasn't like all deep or nothing like that. You know, but it just, in the moment of him saying it, it resonated with me.
Got it.
And it was just like, you can't change people. You can only change how you respond to people.
True.
Right? And that shit was important to her. Right? It wasn't important to me. Mm-hmm. Right? The minute you was impregnated with my child, you, my wife, I don't give a fuck what the courts say. We a family. I don't give a fuck who got to pray over us and sprinkle some magic dust. That shit don't mean nothing to me. You know what I mean? But it meant something to her.
Yes.
Right? So I capitulated. You know what I mean? To make her happy. Capitulate. I'm gonna use our word. It is what it is.
Come out.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? Absolutely did that. But again, I'm rooted in the idea that that shit ain't real to me. Not that the marriage isn't real, but that piece of paper didn't bond us.
Right.
Right? Our commitment to one another bonds us.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the fallacy, right? That's why you have to get that other safety net. That's why I got to sell this pussy, because I don't believe in you as a human. That's why I got to offer you some money, because I don't believe in you as a human. I don't believe that you'll ever have my best interest at hand. So just like you mentioned the couple you know. Everybody's protecting themselves because nobody's willing to be vulnerable. And if you ain't vulnerable, you can't actually love.
And so that's why I asked, what's the meeting point? And so ultimately for him, and he said he's not going to bring up this conversation, but ultimately for him, I said, if you're on this end and she's on that end, and this is the real issue, you're worried about losing what you have built up financially, and she wants that security that comes with that piece of paper, what would it take? And then I asked him, well, what about a prenup? And he said, I can live with that. And so, but he won't bring up that conversation because I think underneath it, he would actually prefer, you know, to leave it as is, but find the middle ground. To me, what's important is that everybody in the relationship is happy. So that does mean that there is vulnerability. That does mean that there's sacrifice on both ends, but let's meet in the middle because you have what you need and I have what I need, our needs and our desires. And if we care about each other and we're bound to each other, we're going to work on coming to the middle as opposed to being on polar ends during the course of this. And it kind of has me thinking about the summer and all this shopping that's going on with the bodies and people connecting. Like, what do you really want out of it? And are you okay with being open and honest with whoever you come across to be able to say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I can navigate, and this is my limitation.
So this is live podcasting / radio / I don't know how to push the buttons and shit. So
we're gonna take a break and reset.
I was thinking we was gonna take a break, and then DJ came in here, so I don't know what we doing. What we doing, DJ? So look, we gotta take a quick break, y'all. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Yeah, DJ got to push some extra buttons and shit so we can make some other things happen in the studio. This is how all the magic happens. Herb does this so much smoother than me.
You're doing great, brother. I promise.
But we're going to go to this quick break and we'll be right back.
WIFTPM. We all remember our life before COVID-19. The parades, the lakefront barbecues, taste of Chicago, the happy hours, and most importantly, loving those unforgettable moments with our friends and families. Getting Chicago vaccinated is what will make the activities we miss safe for everyone. So let's get back to it, Chicago. Let's come together to end this pandemic. Find your vaccine at chi.gov/COVIDvax.
Broken screen? Crash system? Are you in need of spyware or virus removal from your computer? Well, contact RPC Computer Repair in South Shore and let us help you with all your computer repair services and print needs. Need office or print production services, copies, scans, fax, or even notary service. Then stop by and support RPC Computer Repair and Print Shop, located 1741 East 71st Street in the 71st Street corridor, newly revitalized South Shore areas, and let RPC be your one-stop shop, where we believe RPC is your PC. RPC Computer Repair is also a UPS access point where you can drop off and pick up your important packages. So let RPC be of service to you. Call RPC Computer Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. at 773-966-4457. That's 773-966-4457. Visit RPC at rpccomputeringinc.com for more information.
Reach the ruler. This is Week Ho Wednesday, and to my right is Everybody's Women Crush Wednesday. My co-host, the one and only Toy. It goes, love this show, y'all. I'm dealing with a guy. We have been dating for 9 months. In light of everything going on in the world, he has been voicing his opinion about situations, and I don't agree with any of his views. I love everything else except his opinions.
Damn.
How do I fix this? FYI, he's white.
It's about to be a white boy summer.
So could that be the issue?
For sure. Just come out different when it's not coming from your own race. It's just never been something I'd be like, oh, I date Bill.
I'm just a Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill.
I don't really like light-skinned guys. I don't like pink meat.
Pink, so like it's like you see it.
Pink tip, it be pink.
And then pink on
Yeah,
the tip.
I don't like.
So let's have a light-skinned guy have a dark tooth.
And then it look dark, so it's nasty off to me.
Okay, so
I feel like it's supposed to be pink because they light-skinned. You know what I'm saying?
but
I don't want it to be dark because then I'm gonna say you dirty.
Ascension.
Coming from where I'm from. Every season's hot where I'm from. Seems like everybody got a op where I'm from. Niggas barely make it to the top where I'm from. Coming from where I'm from.
Still fooling.
We done lost a lot where I'm from.
Still
watching for them niggas trying to plot where I'm from. Cause everybody trying to make it out where I'm from.
Look, where I'm from, you gotta decide your own outcome. When niggas keep the peace like King and still move like Malcolm. Get it by any means as long as income is the outcome. Hit that stop button when they mouth run. Damn, straight bullets through the skies that powder babies just like talcum. Heartbroken mothers pray to God and ask them how come. You kill one of mine, you gon' get outdone. Say yourself cause Batman ain't gon' save you here in Gotham. Where everybody grew up with a hoop dream. That ain't work, so now that brother out here trying move peas. Shoebox stash and try and stack it up for that new V. Scat packs, Hellcats, SIT, that new Jeep. Ballin' like a school team. I get gone off one of them cones, stay in my zone, no 2-3. RIP to all my dogs, this Hennessy hit concrete. Free my boys behind them walls until they see us all free. Till our day come, we gon' keep on ball link, chillin'.
Coming from where I'm from. Every season's hot where I'm from. Seems like everybody got a op where I'm from. Niggas barely make it to the top where I'm from. Coming from where I'm from. We done lost a lot where I'm from. Watching for them niggas trying to plot where I'm from. Cause everybody trying to make it out where I'm from. I'm from the city of Faux now. Folks in mode now. Blocks they strolling while the cops patrolling. Or they in the trap trying to whip that baking soda. Kids gotta eat, gotta make payola. Trying to survive in the windy city of Shy. Where even if you got a job, you finesse on the side. Cause they steady raising taxes and the rent's getting high. It's getting hard to get by, you feel that pressure apply. Got some weight on your shoulders and some stress in your chest. Eyes bloodshot red cause you ain't getting no rest. I feel your pain, but you can climb out them depths. I know it's hard stacking bread, paying off them debts. But stay focused and maintain and keep going. And watch the ones that you keep the closest. Never leave your circle open, cause a lot of niggas out here serpents. Snakes in the grass lurking for service from where I'm from. Every season's hot where I'm from. Seems like everybody got a op where I'm from. Niggas barely make it to the top where I'm from. Coming from where I'm from. We done lost a lot where I'm from. Watching for them niggas trying to plot where I'm from. Cause everybody trying to make it out where I'm from.
Drew, why you be doing them boys like that, putting them all in their feelings? I don't know. Shit, I can't help it. Nah, cause I be riding in the new whips. Yeah, and shitting on these haters. Yeah. They say I got a problem, huh? Keep banning these foreign whips. Why you doing like they say I got a problem? Cause I keep a bad bitch. Don't flag. They say I got a problem, huh? Fucking these racks up. Don't do it like they say I got a problem, huh? I stay designer down. They say I got a problem, yeah. They say I got a problem. 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 Pulling up a new whips. Yeah, I got a problem. 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 Stay dripped up in the lace. New whip, new bitch. Pockets full, walk with a limp. Falling on you niggas like Sean Kemp. New stick, got it on my hip. Stay dripped down, keep a bad bitch. My crib filled with muscle whips. Young flat nigga, rockin' skinny jeans. Balenciagas on my feet. Pulling up, I'm flicking on them. Our jewelry on me, what dripping on me. My jewels bright like chandelier, like bad bitch. I ride fast whip. Got niggas mad with them sad face, cause I came up, started from the bottom. No hand out, got it on my own. Was a team player, but they ain't show love. Put the niggas on, team full of boss. I'm a flat nigga, yeah, I stay sauce. Yeah, I stay fly, yeah, it's every day. Yeah, I got a problem, can't hear myself. I fuck out of women, I drive us out of whip. Smoke the best weed, party on yachts. Heard niggas hate, cause a nigga winning. Caught the new whip, got a many feelings. I'm a big dog, pop my shit. Got some young niggas that's with the shit. When I'm in the club, I'm standing out, sending over attention. My jury loud, it's a light show. Hope I rinse up, just lit it up. About to steady come, all my bitches love me, all my niggas hustle. Don't love these hoes, I ain't with the cuff. They say I got a problem, huh? Keep banning these foreign whips. Why you doing like they say I got a problem? Cause I keep a bad bitch, don't flag. They say I got a problem, huh? Fucking these racks up, don't do it like they say I got a problem, huh? I stay designer down. They say I got a problem, yeah. They say I got a problem. 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 Pulling up a new whips. Yeah, I got a problem. 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 Stay dripped up in the lace.
WIFTVPN. Live from What's in It for the Black Media Studio. You're listening to I Said What I Said.
Wait, what did you say?
I said you're listening to I Said What I Said.
I just said that.
I know you just said that.
That's what I just said.
That's what I'm saying to you.
Exactly what he just said.
With Herb Howard and Toussaint Werner.
That's about one of the nicest things you've ever said.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Welcome back to I Said What I Said on this beautiful Friday afternoon in the greatest city in the world. We are broadcasting live from the What's in It for the Black People studios. We have been guessed by my other player partner, Marquin McDonald.
Peace.
Q.
Yes, sir.
The assassin.
No, sir.
No, sir.
I don't need it.
You can take that however you want to take it. So Q and Jules was having this heated debate
It wasn't that heated.
while the break was going on. And they brought up this conversation about Felicia Rashad and Megan Thee Stallion. Nah, I was just playing. I brought that shit up, but I thought it was this.
I would do that for real.
For real.
Now
That's
I know how that feels. I know how that feels
That's
now.
what we doing.
All right. I thought that was so interesting. But before we left, man.
That's the seat. That's why you cutting up.
It is the seat, man. It's the seat. I see why Herb acting crazy,
yeah, man.
It's the energy of the seat. This is why Herb
That
acts
low-key
crazy.
energy.
It's something about the seat that makes you act fucking crazy. But we were essentially the conversation we've been having all day is just about values, in my opinion, right? What we value, how those values get communicated, and where do those values lead to, right? We started off the conversation about a meme of James Harden sending Cash App and Sweetie or Saweetie, or have you said her name, the little singer chick. She's a cute little girl, but he sent her $100,000 to go on a date. She kept the $100,000, didn't go on a date. Then we got into this Megan Thee Stallion conversation about this new song she just dropped called Thought Shit, which you was watching the video for before we came on there. And that the video is what it is. I didn't expect nothing different from the video, but there's a line at the end of the song that says, "If you ain't spending, we can't even talk." You know, it's something that rhymes with spending, but the basic concept is you can't communicate with me if you're not spending no bread. And then we went into some other tweets that was just kind of elevating that same idea in a different context. You know what I mean? I've heard women flat out tell me that my mama told me don't ever leave no man house with just a wet ass. You know, I can do bad by my damn self. All these concepts are really ideas in prostitution in my mind.
And also that statement about how do I know he cares if my Cash App?
Yeah,
doesn't
DJ said he was having a conversation with a girl, and she was like, how do I know if he cares about me if my Cash App ain't ringing? And it just creates this kind of value standpoint of everything's for sale. Not value standpoint, but this idea that everything's for sale, right? And we was having a conversation, and even in the comments, like, you know, pussy is powerful, this, that, and the third. And I tend to agree with that. I think women are God, period, right? You give life. That is the very definition. You know what I mean? But if you're selling pussy for money, then in my mind, you're devaluing pussy. Because pussy makes you God. And if you're selling it for money, then who's really the God? You know what I mean? Is money the God? Or, you know what I mean? Or the life giver the God? Which one you negate the value of it, and it
But
creates
that comes
this
from
kind
that
of
hurt space, though.
I agree, and it just creates this concept. And again, I'm not having this conversation in the context of women are bad, men are good. This is not how I approach Relationship Fridays.
Right.
I think we have just a warped value system. You know what I mean? And before we left out, Jules was telling us a personal conversation about some friends of hers who are in this space where they've been together for X amount of years, and the woman wants one thing, and the man was
Marriage.
like, I don't want that.
That piece of paper.
Right. And they're both anchoring themselves in ideas based in their fears. I need that piece of paper because I'm afraid of the possibility. I don't want that piece of paper because I'm afraid of the possibility.
Losing everything.
Right? And we had this conversation last week, and it wasn't even in the context of, not last week, the other day. It wasn't even in the context of relating. But fear has become the dominant motivator. And maybe it's always been a dominant motivator.
It's just a little bit more visible now.
Right, because as we get more connected and certain ideas permeate even larger, fear becomes your God. And if fear is your God, then you're creating a life not worthy of living, in my humble opinion. You know, but who am I?
It's not the healthiest way. It's not a healthy way to live. Not even healthiest. It's not a healthy way to live. And it does put us in a disadvantage as community, as a nation, because if we're functioning off fear, we can't address all the monsters in the room. Like we're just going to cower. And so that's the danger of it all. But part of that conversation, we also talked about how men function in a certain space, you know, the under 25 and the older than 25, and how women have adjusted and saying, well, this is how I win. And so we have to acknowledge that in part is where that comes from, that broken space. This is how I find my power space, because you don't respond any other way. So I know I can manipulate the situation if I force this exchange.
Is that powerful?
For me, it might be. For me, it might be because I haven't been able to identify with experiencing myself as powerful, because you didn't respond any other way. You didn't respond to me trying to just show up and you being fully present and giving me what I need in the sense of your presence and so forth, and us building and us locking in. And so now, well, I can at least get your money because that's obviously what you value. So let me get your money out of you.
But maybe my response is not valuable enough to even be in your space.
That doesn't mean I don't want you in my space. So now we got to navigate. And so the way I found to navigate is to control this situation with this box and get you to respond the way I want you to respond behind it. And now I feel empowered because like you said, I'm over 25. I'm winning. You know, the game is mine. No, I got the game back because you're going to respond to this.
You never get the game back.
I'm just saying.
So even in that context, right, you think you're manipulating us and you're not. Let me tell you something. We're socialized different than y'all.
Absolutely.
I flat out have and I'm not saying this in any kind of a way that promotes this idea.
And I wasn't promoting the idea either. I'm just arguing the
My mother, right, told me when I had my first child, you can always have another baby with another woman. You ain't got to deal with that shit. Mm-hmm. That's a woman responding to an issue in a household with another woman. Man, fuck all that. You can go on about your business. You know what I mean? And figure it out anew. You know what I mean? My anchoring and my construct of family is solely rooted in the relationship with my father. You know what I mean? This quote, you ain't got to deal with that shit.
Right.
Move around. You know what I mean? I think that And we're socialized in that manner. So even the fact that we kind of y'all socialize differently, right? Box is valuable. I don't want to be perceived as a hoe. I don't want to have this moniker on me. I don't give a fuck what you think of me. We've never given a fuck about what you think of me. Men will tell you the most nastiest, disgusting shit they'll tell their boys. The most nastiest, disgusting shit that they've done or that they do, and we'll laugh at that shit for 5 minutes, and it won't never be a topic of conversation no more. There's no judgment. We don't care. Right? So, yeah, I had this little buzzard from, man, you a dirty little, all right, what we doing? And it's never another topic of conversation. So in that vein, there's a level of freedom of expression, at least sexually,
right,
that you all don't have.
And I think part of this power play, it's a power play, is to own it differently. But I think it's showing up in a pseudo manner, and it's being something it doesn't have to be, as it relates to, you know, the whole transaction and us not just navigating in a healthy space. Like we talked earlier about, prior to, the men were out in front and women were in the background, and so it's in part the feminist movement was a pushback from that, and it just keeps getting exasperated. Well, if it didn't work when we were all functioning from that end, it's not going to function on the complete opposite end either. So we need to come to the middle, acknowledge our hurt with each other, and move forward together without me trying to push myself above you or you pushing yourself above me, if that's how I identify it was historically. But even so, just getting back to the conversation around us having a healthier connection, like we talked last time I was here about the shopping that's going on this summer. Like, how are we going to relate to one another in a healthier fashion? How are we going to be open and honest and acknowledge the hurt and navigate differently? You know, where's the freedom in that movement? Because I think I heard you guys when you all were talking on Wednesday around what is freedom. Well, in the context of a relationship and us relating, what can freedom look like? What can we co-create in this process so we both can be happy? Like the relationship that I spoke about, the 10-year relationship that I spoke about earlier. He's on this end and she's on that one. Well, my concern is, how do we find the middle and be happy together?
I don't think it's a middle. I think it's a shifting of values attached to a shifting in our understanding of our identity.
But even so, everything would shift in such a way that we found the balance. And that's what I'm referring to when I say the middle. Where's our balance at?
Well, then if that's the case, then, I mean, I'm with it. I get the concept, right? But if that's the case, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. How do we find that balance? Or when I said fixing us looks like us aligning with the American paradigm. You're not doing this right until you do it like Mr. Charlie, i.e. the white man, said you supposed to do it.
So for me, that has to, it's not about anything outside, not the American paradigm. We got our own household. How are we going to navigate this household? How are we going to?
I'm going to push back.
Okay.
Right? You're in the open forum. You say, hey, man, monogamy some bullshit.
Okay.
What's the response? The vast majority of the room's response.
Shocked and appalled.
Shocked and appalled.
Especially for me.
Right? You in the open space, you're having a conversation with men and women, and you say, marriage is stupid. What's the response? In a dating context, what's the response if you're in one of them relationship room conversations?
But you know what's interesting?
It's going to be pushback.
It's going to be pushback. So we think we operating above the paradigm, and we're not. Our value systems are socialized and rooted, deeply rooted inside the paradigm.
But that's a public conversation. In private, behind our closed door, what are we doing? And that's what we got to get to.
So those same public people live somewhere privately, but their ideas ain't shifting because they've been socialized in the same paradigm.
So I think sometimes in public we put on the front. Remember when you guys had that quiz and it's like, how black are you or something like that? People scored differently when they did it with the family, and by themselves you had a different score. So when we show up in public, sometimes the energy around that shows up as opposed to us being solely in tune with who we are and our authentic self. We're identifying with the group in that moment. But behind a closed door, like, let's get down to it. Let's get real. It's just you and I here. What are we doing? How are we going to define this? And what are we going to create as it relates to us showing up for one another? So that becomes the question. And then, can I show up as my authentic self? And can you help me work past that?
And therein lies the real struggle,
And can I admit my vulnerabilities and my fears? Like, yep, I grew up in America and this marriage thing is a real thing and I think I'm supposed to have this piece of paper. I tie my security around that. And you say, well, I get that and this is how I feel about it, and us continuing to talk that out, and even to the point of me being open to not being tied to that piece of paper, or you tying to the piece of paper. But either way, it's about us, not that construct, us working through hey, this is my fear. Like, I got to be real honest with you about that. Like, my security is tied to that. Can you help me pass that?
I agree with all that. Right? But first, you got to conquer your personal fears.
Or
have
we can't.
any of those
we have
conversations.
We have to, because if we're building something, you have to show up for me in such a way that we work through that together. That's why you're there, to help me grow and for us to serve our purpose. If I found my person, then we have to work through that together.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds good. But that's not.
What do you mean?
That you're gonna have to conquer yourself personally first. Like, it's something similar to what Will Smith said about Jada, saying that, you know, Jada wasn't happy. He was like, it's not his responsibility to make her happy.
Oh, absolutely
She has
not.
to be happy on her own when entering. So it's the same thing. The only reason why I can come into my relationship the way I've come into my relationship is because I conquered, or I dealt with self first. It wasn't that she helped me to do anything. It's that I had to be able to come to myself first, be honest with myself first, take accountability and be honest with self, a certain level of responsibility and accountability, hold myself up to a certain level of integrity, and then come to her like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. But generally, we're looking for someone to raise us, to help raise each other. And the fact is, I'm not saying that won't happen within a relationship, but you need to be able to come in the beginning with a certain level of maturity first. And that is not necessarily on me. That's going to be on you and how you receive it. Because if I come to you in the beginning and say, hey, I'm interested in you, I want to talk to you, I would like to get to know you, and maybe we can go ahead and grow and make a bond. But let me explain something first. One, I may be into polygamy. I may be into this. I may be into that. I may be into this. Can you handle this? And you like, oh, sure. And you're lying to yourself. Because you're sitting there thinking like, man, I ain't into that shit. But what I'm going to do is, you know, I like him and I'm attracted to him and I want to get to know him. And I can go ahead and finagle my way into this and manipulate the situation where I can go ahead and knock that out. And then the relationship starts to fall apart because he or she stands on her truth. Then you were the problem because you weren't honest with yourself and saying, you know what, this is who I am. And I don't necessarily agree with this. And how can we both come to this middle ground? Come to this ground. So it ain't coming in the beginning.
Look at you.
I get all that. I'm not talking about the individual. I have to come healthy and whole. I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about the part where we're building and constructing. So you just mentioned, hey, I'm into this polyamorous thing. Well, hey, in my world, I'm not familiar with that. I'm afraid. How do we work this together? It's not me being out of touch with who I am and not coming to the relationship whole. We're trying to construct our thing.
Yeah, but
so you got to help me with that.
We can't construct our thing if I'm not tight first with self first.
Yes.
So it has to start with the individual first.
Absolutely.
We can't build anything if I and you as the I is not in whole with self first, and then we come to. So it's always going to start with the I. It's always going to start with, not trying to sound corny, but the man in the mirror. It's always going to start there first, always.
So I agree with both of y'all. And I mean in this context, I think relationship is therapy. Right? I don't think anyone comes to a relationship whole. I think it is through relationship that you grow to your whole self. Right? But in order to grow there, gotta get back to vulnerability, i.e., and vulnerability really is a removal of fear. That part of it is personal, right? Because I can be vulnerable and I can be open and I can be honest, but if you're still operating in this protected space, you're never that don't mean shit to you.
And it always starts off in the protected space. You were never, even on the first encounter, we always have on our mask. Generally, when people meet each other, they're meeting each other as representatives. They're not necessarily meeting each other authentically and honestly. You're meeting my representative. I wear this particular type of cologne. I look like this. I look like that. And inside your mind, you're thinking like, man, he seemed like he got his stuff together. And I sure am going to act like I do because I want to get to know you.
Why do we do that, though? Why do we do that? Why does everyone do that?
That shows up. I'm afraid that you won't respond to the real me.
Because we've been socialized
Exactly.
to be transactional. And the very nature of the introduction creates an idea where the reality of being vulnerable is never accessible. You don't get vulnerable until you get deep into some shit. You don't get honest until you get deep into some shit.
It is hard
it's
to come.
all theater until you get deep into some shit.
It is theater. Let me tell you what I did differently with my wife. We went to Bar Louie, and this was our first time going out. We just went to Bar Louie just to get to know each other. And that very first day is the very first time I told her who I was. Take that shit or leave it. And it was within complete authenticity. Like, yo, this is who I am. She asked me personal questions. I answered them honestly. I asked her personal questions, and she answered them honestly to that I know of. But I answered straight honestly. Did you do this? I surely did. Did you do that? No, I didn't do that. Are you into this? I surely am. And or I gave her info until. Most people are not going to do it because, as he said, socialize. The social standard is based off of how I was raised as a young man. From other men and also from other women and from watching TV and so on and so forth, you have to come with a certain presentation. You know, it's a certain presentation that you come with, which may not necessarily be who you are authentically because you are afraid that she won't accept you for who you are.
That's what I say.
Yes. So but his point is that presentation is still transactional. It's I'm coming this like this, so you can go ahead, so I can get that, and it's still come now. So this is what I'm willing to argue though, that's just nature, period. Though.
But see, I'm not gonna ride with that.
But even before that, going back to the question though, the stuff shows up. Like I came with my full authentic self. You presented something that's scary for me. All I'm proposing is that we work through this together. Like I have flexibility as it relates to certain things. I'm going to show up as my real authentic self, and you presented something. It's not a no, but it's different to me.
I agree, right? Look, I grew up in a neighborhood where, elders had whole other families 3 blocks away. And the old lady knew about it. This is true shit, right? I remember one of the elder extra women got sick, and the regular woman was sending her plates over there via us.
Yes.
I was like, this is some dope shit.
Yeah.
I thought it was dope.
Yeah.
Right? But I also recognize that as a level of maturity that we rarely see in generations below that. Right? My grandmother was one of like 16 or some shit like that. So I got my father she was like number 2. So my father was older than a lot of his uncles and shit like that. So I grew up very close to all of those men and their families because my cousins, we all in the same age bracket. A lot of them men had whole families in different parts of the city, and everybody knew, right? And even to the point about DJ saying, everybody in my family has a second marriage, right? When you come to my family reunion, it's the wife, it's the ex-wife, and it's the girlfriend. And everybody gets along, right? I grew up in this world, it wasn't abnormal to me because this is how they kind of rock.
Same in my world.
Right? But when I operate in other spaces, people are like, what's going on here? And again, going back to the social constructs, right? The social context. My father was born in 1944, so his mama had to be born in 100. I mean, not I'm being funny, but you know what I mean? That's a different world, right? So as this world gets smaller, these ideas get more concentrated, we become more affected by the social norm or whatever the social norm is popularizing, right? So when Megan popularizes pay for this pussy, or when James Harden popularizes I'm going to pay for this pussy, when that becomes the theme, right? And we live in a space and place where we're losing economic stability.
Yes.
We got to be real about that. So we're at a point where we're too poor to even have family. Don't nobody really do Thanksgiving no more. You can't afford to. If you ain't got Big Mama no more, that shit over with. Ain't no aunts picking up that flag like that no more.
Well, there's an opportunity to recreate how that happens, but we don't have to abandon it. But the same thing that shows up.
I
in
ain't arguing
relationships,
that. I'm not dealing with the idea of what should be. I'm dealing with the ideas of what is it in the moment, right? And I don't want to paint with a broad brush, right? But I can recognize it in my own family. We don't get together. My son and daughter don't have the same kind of relationships with their cousins that I have with my cousins.
And so
it's not the same level of connectivity, right? So we're aligning ourselves more and more with this white idea, whether we know it or not. It's a white idea of rugged individualism. We've always been communal.
Yes.
Right? But as we get poorer and poorer, and even when we think about the idea of where the white man was birthed from, a savage kind of construct, because they came from the Caucasoid Mountains and they were born, or they had to live through an idea of a scarcity idea, a scarcity mindset, a fear mindset, right? We come from community and abundance, i.e. you don't have to be afraid because everybody's going to be good anyway.
Yes.
Right? We're moving further and further away from that origin, more and more in alignment with this Western white social construct. We wrap it in all kind of shit. We wrap it in feminism. We wrap it in getting money. We wrap it in doing well. We wrap it in all this bullshit. But what it really looks like is joining the other team. Now, the problem with us joining the other team is that we don't have access to other teams' resources.
And they don't want us.
And they don't want us on their team in the first fucking place. Right? But the reason they can move in that way is they don't have to be rooted in anything because everything is designed for them. It's just that, right? White people don't have to be conscious about spending white because the minute you go in somewhere, you spending white. Right? White people don't have to be conscious of what's the community, the collective community idea to raise up the next generation. Because everything is centered around raising up that next generation. So here we are moving into these constructs and these ideas without the resources. And the benefits aren't the same. You don't get the same reward. Matter of fact, you really dismantle everything that you have built beforehand because you're operating out scientifically. You're operating in a form that's not beneficial to you. Yes. Right.
And that relies on you to be a subordinate to it to a great degree. And so that's the importance of space like this and enlarging the voice. And that's why we ask, hey, share, because we need to save ourselves and make sure that we're pushing the idea it's okay. So sometimes we don't know if something is okay until we see it someplace else. We don't know it's okay to show up as our authentic self. We don't necessarily know that we have to be healed and whole to show up for a relationship and then build from there. We don't want to take those chances because that's not what we see. That's not what's familiar. And we get a chance to promote those ideas and say, nope, give it a try. It works. Like you said, it works in your world. It works in my world. I saw one of the comments saying like everybody's in essence fake, like nobody's showing up as their authentic self. And I think that for me doesn't necessarily come from the space of having to be transactional as much or desire to be transactional as much as it is a space of fear. Now I get the transactional conversation, but I'm afraid that if I show up as my authentic self, then I might not be able to experience what I want to experience out of the human connection of you and I in an intimate sense.
I mean, first of all, you might disagree, but everything is transactional. I don't care what anyone says. Everything is transactional. Everything. If your mate pisses you off about something, but then wants to come to you about something, you're going to be like, nah, because you pissed me off about something, which means that you're not going to give me, it's no transaction. But if your mate makes you happy and makes you feel good, which is because he comes in and he works and he does this, that, and the third, and it's like, man, because he also knows that if by doing this, nature is transactional. It's a reason why certain birds puff up their chests to show their bright colors so they can get the female. It's a reason why they have the female creatures and male creatures want to see who has the best singing voice because they're trying to beat out all the other males to have that. It's what can offer, what looks the strongest, who has the best, who can provide more. It's all throughout nature, period. But how we've done it or how it looks upon us, it seems to be bastardized. It seems to be diluted. It had substance at one point. It was a meaning to it at one point. Now it's just some frivolous bullshit. But it had meaning at some point. Everything is transactional. You know, Dave Chappelle has said it. Men don't, it ain't that men like nice cars, which they probably do, but it's because men get nice cars because they know women like nice cars. So it's always been that. And we are not lying to ourselves if we think that it's going to be anything other than. If you have a son or if you have a daughter and a young man comes to your door with his pants hanging down by his knees and he smell like just straight funk and he got tattoos all over his face, you're lying to me if you're telling me that, yeah, and he's like, yeah, I came to take out your daughter. I came to take that little bitch out. You're lying to me to be like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give him a shot. No, his transaction is his presentation. He came proper. He came clean. He looked clean. He smelled good. He came and he greeted me. Hello, Mr. McDonald, I'm such and such. I was just wondering if I could take your daughter out or whatever. He came with a certain level of presentation that came. That was the transaction. And then it was up to me to go, yay or nay. It's up to me to go, yay or nay. It's natural. It is what it is.
Is it up to you?
So, and then my question is...
You say, is it up to me?
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be, ultimately, she's going to make the decision herself, but it is up to me. That's the problem.
He's a gatekeeper.
What I'm saying is that goes back to our conversation before. You can go ahead and date him if you want to, but his ass ain't gonna come back to this house again. Right. And I guarantee your ass ain't gonna see him again. Keep fucking around with him.
You ain't gonna see him again. Come back to your house.
Come back to your house.
That nigga ain't going nowhere.
No. But that, once again, but see, that goes back to our understanding of what we talked about before and when it comes to our community. You can keep coming to my door, and then your father and mother gonna have a problem looking for you. Get the fuck on. And it needs to be a conversation with them. Excuse me, miss, sir, I had a conversation with your son. I don't want him to come. I don't want my daughter associated with him, blah, 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 blah. And if he keeps coming on, see that, we have to,
no, my thing. She's going to.
And we're going to have an understanding on that. I'm sorry, it got to be that, it's going to be an understanding. And listen, in my house, it's going to be a certain understanding. Now, it is what it is. And my wife is fully with it, too, because we've had this conversation already. Mm-hmm. Because we got to stand on something. That's another thing that we don't stand on. We got to stand on something. There's going to be standards. And that's just me. Now, people can disagree with that shit, but it's just who I am, and it has to be a level of standards when it comes to this, especially when it comes to my son or my daughter. If I see you a young lady that's raggedy, I'm going to look at my son and be like, nah, bro, this ain't it. And then me and him going to have a conversation. Look, man, we can either have an understanding or we can have an understanding. And it's going to be the same thing with my other children, because you will not. And I've told my oldest daughter this because she understands it now. I got a few rules. You don't embarrass your bloodline, because that's your ancestors. You honor your ancestors, and you don't embarrass yourself. You don't embarrass us, and you don't embarrass yourself. You have a value set. There's a value to you, and it is that serious. We done got away from that. We done got away from what's a certain level of seriousness, because fools out here think that they can just do whatever they please and so on and so forth. There's got to be a level of seriousness, and with all... And there's some, I know people may look at me kind of strange with it, but there has to be a level, there has to be a threat there too. Yo, my man said don't come back to his door. But because there is nothing there, it's like, man, with my father, it was a threat. When my father said something, it was like, yo, he meant it. Like, it was a serious threat of things. And it was just like, man, you know, go anywhere. You can go anywhere on this. Go to the jungle. Go to Africa, in the plains of Africa. And after that lion done growled at you once and was like, and then charged, and you ran away and it walked away. That charge was, don't bring your ass back over here again. And then go back over there and step in closer and get close enough to where he can tear your behind up. And then you're gonna be like, damn, I ain't going back over there. It needs to be the same thing. What we do, because we've been socialized a certain way, is be like, that's not the right way. That's so mean. That's not. No, it ain't mean. No. It's gonna be an understanding, and it needs to go. And then but that's just me.
So in what you shared, I think when I hear Toussaint say transactional, I hear something different than what you're talking about. No, what you're talking about, I identify, and it's always semantics with us, but I identify as a certain exchange of energy, like a certain energy shows up, and then there's going to be a response to
which
that
is
energy.
transactional.
Right. So
it still goes within the spirit of transaction.
And so with that, the argument for me goes back to showing up as your authentic self and not being afraid to be that, whether it's standing in the face of what's right in your opinion, giving two cares about whether or not somebody else agrees with it and what works for you, and whether it's for the household or you first connecting with someone else. And I think that people are afraid of that because what shows up in the past or what is promoted as popular. And so that's why we have to continue to argue for showing up as your authentic self, allowing your full spirit to be present and connect and make genuine connections, because that's what's going to save us. Once we get a chance to have the experience of wins behind us being in our true authentic space, our comfort level for that to happen more continuously is going to improve, and we're going to continue to model that for one another, and we'll continue to move upward into a better space. And we're not identifying or trying to identify or copy something that doesn't belong to us, point blank, period, at all.
I can agree with that. That's why I feel like culture starts in the house. That's just why I feel like, we have a particular understanding. We practice our spirituality in a particular way. We have very open conversations. I'm going to assume that everything is necessary, but we do our best to tactfully and strategically have very open conversations to help us become better versions of ourselves on an individual basis and together. And we try to make sure that our children see that as well, and we build that. And what I was speaking on earlier is it just needs to be a certain level of standard with a culture. Because also, for example, yesterday, working with some kids out in Roseland, one of the kids was offered a water from an elder. And he was like, "Nah, I got water in my bag." And I looked at him and was like, "No, thank you." And he was like, No, thank you, ma'am, because I have to, those standards. And now he's going to continue on with that. But also, I sort of lost my thought. But my point is that we have to start setting those and going to what Tu is saying, remove ourselves. We are a part of this construct that was created through white supremacy and so forth, and systemic racism and so on and so forth. But within our own community, we have to set a certain level of standards, and we are allowing others to set standards for us. That, in my personal opinion, is fucking up our relationships as far as friendships, as far as marriage, is on many different levels. We are being drugged into. I thought I cut that off. I'm sorry.
I think those standards go back to what I said about identity, though. Rules and boundaries in which culture is shaped around. Period, point blank. Right? There was a time when a young man would never show up to your house in any manner but a respectable manner.
Yes.
Right? Because of the power that the men in the community wielded in general. It had nothing to do with the girl. You know what I mean? It's interesting, man. Like I said I have a certain affinity for my father. And my father, in a lot of ways, his behavior, if I could imagine him at my age, we very similar dudes. Like, he built me to be like him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And when you look at my relationships and how I navigate the city, like, I'm legitimately the dude that can walk amongst everybody, right? So I got full out chiefs of gangs as friends, right? And I remember my father fell ill, mm-hmm. and they would come check him out. And they would make sure they didn't smell like reefer. They would make sure they was, this, that, and the third. At his funeral, you had captains of industries and captain of the blocks in the pews, and that's just not a normal thing. But it's also about how he operated in his fullness. You know what I mean? But that's such a rarity. And to Q's point, everybody else is creating our identity, right? And that's not even everybody else. It's what America does.
Our permission,
right? It's kind of what America does, right? Nobody stays here and doesn't assimilate, right? We got Chinatown down the street, but as we get to the third, fourth generation of Chinese children, they want to move away from there. They don't want to be there anymore. They want to assimilate. They're getting whiter and whiter and whiter and whiter as they go, right? We have a unique positioning in America because we've been here since the beginning. Right? And we don't have that anchoring in China, not Chinatown, but China, the authenticity of a legacy.
Yes.
Right? We don't have, we say the continent as if that shit means something. People in Lagos and people in Ghana ain't the same fucking people. right? They don't adhere to the same kind of cultural identity, right? So for us to be like, we're Africans, what the fuck does that mean? It don't mean shit. There's no attachment to a continent. Nobody does that. It's not a continental culture. There's no such thing. You know what I mean? So that culture creates those standards. But again, I want to provide a little bit of pushback too, though. Even within the confines of those standards, I don't necessarily operate like you. At some levels, I'm operate like you. You ain't gonna fully disrespect my fucking house. That ain't gonna never happen for nobody. Woman, man, dog, it ain't happening, right? But I also acknowledge that my daughter and my son are gonna choose their mates based on, and I don't mean like life partners. I mean anybody they fucking with at that moment in time in their life. It is based on a universal understanding of this is what they need in that moment to build themselves. So if you got that tattoo on his neck, smoke weed all day, do shit nothing ass person in your life, then that's a reflection of however you present. I don't give a shit. You can wear a suit and tie, Brooks Brothers shoes. If that motherfucker's in your life, that's who you are. And the universe is teaching you how to get beyond that space. And if you avoid that lesson,
it's going to show up again.
It's going to show up again and again and again until you pass that class. I don't give a fuck how you present. You still going to be a nothing ass person. And I don't even want to say that's a nothing ass person. Because I got partners who present like that, and I think they fucking brilliant. It's just, again, it's what we value and how we view it.
But that goes back to the conversation of when you show up as your authentic self, this other person could show up in your space, and then how do you navigate and grow with that or from that? And that has to be important enough to you to make sure that you're always in that pursuit. And sometimes that is going to be god awful hard. But if you continue to stay in your space and be true to yourself and listen to your spirit, you get a chance to have the experience of growing beyond that and getting a chance to have this moment in life in which you show up, and it's not dependent from a woman's perspective about the box and this exchange. And that's what makes us more powerful as a people, and that's the potential that is out there for us if we stop just buying into this is how I manage it. I throw this box out there and I get this change in return.
So let me say that I agree completely, but at the same time, the standard in which that I said needs to be set for me still has to be there. My daughter and my son are going to go out and experience their world. You know, as Khalil Gibran said, they came through us. They're not ours. They're not ours. However, at the same time, there is still a standard in which that I need to hold.
Hey, can I just say real quick? I just love the fact that Q just quoted Khalil Gibran on here. If y'all don't know who Khalil Gibran is, get it too.
Yeah, do your studies. So the fact is that, as a matter of fact, when we did my oldest daughter's naming ceremony, the elders sung that. It was a group of elders that sung. The naming ceremony was beautiful. It was only supposed to be like 20 people. It turned out to be 300 because of who my oldest daughter's grandparents are. And the elders sung that song, you know, to her mother and myself. Like, yo, as like, listen, they come through you, but they're not you. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, they're a property. At the same time, though, is the Kabbalion speaks on the laws of duality, polarity, vibration.
See, now you're just showing off. And so, you know, now you're showing off. Shit.
No.
Now you're showing off. And shit.
So the whole piece of as above, so below is if I just
it's that chair.
If I let her,
that's that freaking chair.
If I don't hold that standard, my daughter's gonna look at me. First of all, my children, even my son, but with us, mother and father, they're gonna look at us and be like, okay, that's what we have a model.
Goes back
to
modeling.
We have a model. That's the standard. But even if they do go out and explore, they know what my standard is, and they know, like, man, you know what, you cute and all, but my father may kill you, and so it needs to be. I'm sorry, it needs to be there. It's the same thing with our community. It's the same principles that govern our community and governs the block. We had it year before last, 2019. We got a phone call. This is brothers who do watch guard. These are ultimately brothers who do watch guard. We get a phone call from a brother out on the west side. That's on the west, and he's like, "This man, he explained that his oldest daughter, was getting beaten by her child's father, and they've been going back and forth. And this time, he threatened to go even further and do worse. So, as a matter of fact, the man didn't call. Sorry, the mother called. Now, the father had dealt with it at one point already. And the father got word that we were coming. So he was like, cool. And when we got there, he had someone there with him, but we came quite deep. Men. And what happened was we found out that the young brother was hiding outside. He had got there after we got there, so we're inside the house. So what ended up happening was we're talking to the young lady. We're getting the story straight. We see that there's issues on both sides. Okay. But he had got there after us, so he didn't know that we was in there. But he knew that the father was there. So the father was like, I got to get to my wife. Y'all can handle this or whatever. When the father leaves, he comes in. He doesn't even look. He's looking at the door, comes through the front door, sees us and is like, oh, and then he was like, man, whatever, closes the door. And he had that cockiness. Man, whatever, man. Y'all in my da-da-da-da. But when he saw there was a threat there, a very serious threat, it was like, oh, no, this is real. No, this ain't banter and posturing, little man, my bro. We come in love for both of you, and in love, you're going to go ahead and receive this love. And to this day, he has not put his hands on her. As a matter of fact, not even raised her voice. She's confirmed. The mother, I've talked to the mother. I keep in touch with them. No, it's real. And it has to be done. We are going to, if we keep moving in that Carol yet, here's just my last quote. It's a show that I like. It's called Marco Polo. But they gave this little special to the martial artists on there called 100 Eyes. And he told, not Genghis Khan, but his nephew, I forget his name, but he told him, he's like, you're not afraid of death? Because he threatened him with death or whatever. And he said, no, it's not. He's like, it's not that I'm not afraid to die. I just don't cling on to life. There's a difference. And so I do my absolute best to move in that spirit, because if I don't, then I'm a slave to it. So I have to be willing to do that for my family and for the people. It just has to be. It may seem reckless and selfish, but it just has to be. Because if I don't set that standard, everyone else is setting a standard.
Right.
The young dudes that's carjacking and acting a fool, they set a standard. Back in the day when the moles was doing their thing, they set a standard. Vice Lord set a standard. The folks set a standard. The foes set a standard. Everybody, kings, whatever, they set standards. The Nation of Islam set a standard. Your church sets a standard. My house, I have to set a standard and stand on it like a man. And then whatever consequences of the choice that I've made comes, I have to be willing and be brave enough and just be like, yo, this is what it is.
And that's a great model, and that's the importance of this space and being able to have this conversation. And Toussaint, somebody commented that you did a great job today. Hurt was missed.
Yes, indeed,
but
man.
I know you're about to close us out, and I thank you for leading this phenomenal conversation and creating us an opportunity for us to look at what we're doing and be able to identify different ways to navigate. Thank you for leading that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jules. So, in the words of my brother Herb, he would say some shit around community and collective conversations, and we did a great job here today, and yeah, that worked. So, we appreciate y'all tuning in, man. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's not always a conversation centered on relationships, but it is always a conversation centered on whatever's relevant in the black diaspora at the moment, right? We have a plethora of guests. We have a plethora of ideas, and we try to not bring you all bullshit, mundane conversations that you're accustomed to on every other channel, in every other platform, on every other network. So, if this is your first time rocking with us today, we hope to see you back. If you decide to not rock with us again, fuck you too. If you decide that you want to push this to your people, I think it would make a lot of sense. We're trying to grow this audience because these ideas need to grow within our community. We appreciate you rocking with us. From Q, Jules, and 2.
Hit the share button.
Salam alaikum.
I'm a frequent offender. Where Wyclef was hot, I was gone to November. 6 years, hard time. Bobby was fucking up. Whitney could have been mine. We would have been so high
is so in love. When Amy Winehouse died, I could have saved her.